In Lesson 22, we're going to be talking about managing sources and controlling text flow. In this lesson, we're going to talk about inserting a page break into our document, which we've done before, but we're going to remind you how to do that. Controlling pagination, what's going to be on each page and how to set your breaks accordingly. We're going to talk about footnotes and endnotes to be able to document our papers that you might write. Inserting citations. This is when I'm using some kind of a bibliography or something along those lines, and I want to make note of the items that are being referenced in my document. And then finally adding that reference page, whether it's called a bibliography or works cited, adding that page to my document. In this lesson, we need to find the file that we will need to open. So we're going to go in our book to Lesson 22. The actual page number that we need is 291, page 291. And on this page, we're going to scroll down and open this try file. I'm going to enable the editing. And now I'm going to save this file to my Documents folder and creating a dated folder with which to put it in. Opening up that dated folder and adding my initials to this file name. Now in this lesson I've got a couple of pages here, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about a feature called Keep with Next. As you scroll down in this document, you will see that photography tips appear on one page and the text for photography tips appear on the next page. Now, prior to today's lesson, what I know most people would do is simply click in front of photography tips. Press the Enter key to move it down to the next page. The problem with this is that if text moves around and this gets moved to a different, let's say zebra gets moved to the next page, well now all of a sudden I've got a larger gap between this paragraph and this paragraph because I used the Enter key here. So if you did that with me, please go back and remove that Enter key. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a paragraph setting called Keep with Next. And simply what that does is it simply says that for this paragraph, this two-word paragraph, I want to keep it on the same page as this next paragraph. So with this paragraph selected, I'm going to go into the paragraph settings. On the paragraph settings, this is my standard dialog box that I typically work with. I'm going to switch to this second tab, and here we're going to use this Keep with Next setting. What this is going to do is simply tell Word that always keep the photography tips on the same page as we will see many other animals. So I click OK, and those two items will now stay together. One other thing I want to add, going back into this paragraph dialog box, specifically looking at line and page breaks. A few other things that you are very likely to see on your text, on your certification exam, beside the Keep with Next option is the Keep Lines Together option. And so where I would use that, I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this for just a moment, is let's say that you wanted to make sure that this entire paragraph always stay together on a page, meaning you don't want half of the paragraph at the bottom of one page and the other half of the paragraph at the top of the next page. You want to make sure that all of this text stays on the same page. Well, what you can do is with that paragraph selected, you can go into the paragraph setting, choose Keep Lines Together, and what that's going to do is make sure that this entire paragraph always stays on a single page. It will not get split up. If any of this paragraph goes to the next page, then all of this paragraph goes to the next page. Along with that, because we've done the photography tips has to stay with this, if part of this paragraph, say this line ends up at the bottom of the page and ends up going to the next page, if this one line goes to the next page, this whole paragraph goes to the next page, and consequently, photography tips will then also go to the next page. So that's another option that you very likely will see on the test. Again, that's in the paragraph dialog box. Keep with next keeps two paragraphs together. Another place where keep with next is used is often with a picture and its caption to make sure that they go together, or a picture or with a paragraph. You know, a paragraph says, in the picture above. Well, we want to make sure that that picture stays above, so we use the picture, do a keep with next on the picture to make sure that the picture and the paragraph stay together. And then the keep lines together basically ensures, as I've been saying, that the entire paragraph all stays together. Now we are going to be inserting a page break right here in front of Zebra. Had I not done the keep with next and would have just pressed the enter key, I would have had that large space here. Alright, so I'm here under Zebra. I'm going to go to the Page Layout tab, and we are going to click on the Breaks button. Now I've got two options here. I could do a standard page break, or I could do a next page section break. If I wanted to format page 1 and page 2 differently, I would need to use one of these two. Which one would I need to use? Hopefully, you remembered from the last session that we would use the next page section break if I wanted to format page 1 and page 2 differently. In this case, I'm not going to be using them differently, so I can use the standard page break as well. Alternatively, another thing that I could have done rather than using my break button is there is a keyboard shortcut called Control-Enter that I could have used to insert this page break. On page 1, we're going to go to the end of the first paragraph for lions. Okay, so we're going to click at the end of the first paragraph for lions. That's after the word seen here. And we are going to insert a footnote. A footnote is basically when you want to add additional information about whatever it is you're writing about. So maybe you might include where you got the information from. Maybe you want to add some additional information that may be significant to the reader, but it's not necessary to include it in the actual document itself. So we're going to add a footnote here. And basically, because it's a footnote, it's going to go at the bottom of the current page. The way that we add footnotes is through the References tab on the ribbon. References. We've used references one other time. We talked at one other time about inserting a caption for a picture, was what we used references for earlier. But this time we're here to insert a footnote into this document. So I'm going to click on Insert Footnote, and that did a couple things. It put the number 1 where my cursor was. It moved my cursor to the bottom of the page, drew a line at the bottom of the page here, put another 1 here, and it's now ready for me to type in my footnote right here. Well, what am I going to type? Well, we're going to get that information from page 293 of our book. So I'm going to go back to my book and turn to page 293. And here is the text that we are going to include in our footnote. So I'm going to simply resize this so that I can see it on my screen, and resize my Word document so that I can see it on my screen. I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm typing. African Wildlife Foundation, wildlife, lion, comma, quote. And now we're including a web address, so I'm putting an open bracket. That's the shifted comma, by the way. http://www.awf.org/content/wildlife/detail/lion, close bracket, comma, and now we're going to put in today's date, which for me that happens to be November 7th, 2015, and a period. So we've entered in that footnote. I'm going to go ahead and maximize my screen again. So we've entered in that footnote, again, noting that there is the number 1 that's appearing here. The footnote appears at the bottom of that particular page. Now, I'm going to zoom out so you can see a little better what's going on in the pages. I'm now going to go to the zebra paragraph, and the instructions want us to go to the end of the second zebra paragraph. So this would be the first zebra paragraph. This would be the second zebra paragraph. So I'm going to click at the end of the second zebra paragraph, and this time they're going to insert an EndNote. Now guys, this is a training session, so we are going to insert an EndNote here, but in reality, in any given document, you are going to either use footnotes or endnotes. You don't typically use both footnotes and endnotes in the very same document. And your teacher or instructor would tell you which one they want you to use. But in this case, just so that we can show you the difference between a footnote and an endnote, we are going to use an endnote here. So at the end of this second paragraph, I'm going to click on Insert EndNote. And what that does is that places the 1 here, and then it will add the EndNote at the end of the document. That's the difference between a footnote and an EndNote. A footnote goes at the bottom of the page, whereas your EndNote goes at the end of the document, wherever that happens to be. Now once again, we're going to have to get the EndNote from our book, so I'm going to kind of minimize this here a little bit. Scroll down and zoom in so I can see that EndNote area a little better. And in our book, we're going to go to page 294. And here is the EndNote information that they wish us to type. So I'm going to type in here the movement of wildebeest, the movement of wildebeest, zebra, and other grazing animals across the plains is known as the Great Migration. The movement of wildebeest, zebra, and other grazing animals across the plains is known as the Great Migrations. That is the endnote that they wanted us to add to this particular document. So I'm going to go ahead and maximize my screen again, and I'm going to zoom back out just a little bit. So we now have an endnote. Now let's say that you wanted to change the numbering system for the endnote. I think that this numbering system for endnotes is a small letter I, Roman numerals. So I'm going to click. What I want to do is I want to change that to letters. So here where it says footnotes, again, I'm on the references ribbon, footnotes and endnotes. I'm going to open the dialog box. What this does is it gives me the ability to change the settings for my footnotes or endnotes. Now, since I happen to be on a footnote right now, or excuse me, an endnote right now, that's selected my endnotes. And as I suspected, my endnotes are being labeled with lowercase Roman numerals. Let's change that to be a capital letter A, B, and C. So again, what I'm doing is I'm changing my endnotes so they will appear as capital letters. My footnotes, you may remember, appeared as regular Arabic numerals. So I'm going to do this as numbers here. I'm going to simply apply. I'm not adding another endnote here. I'm simply applying the change that we made for the number format. And that does change my endnotes to letters as opposed to numbers. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to add some references. What a reference is where I've used a book, could be a website or something along those lines, in my documentation. And what I need to do is I need to document that information. If I don't document it, this could be considered plagiarism, because I may be using text or research that has come from those books, and so I need to cite my sources and explain where I got the information from. Now, the information that I want to include in my citation is going to be part of the lions paragraph. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so I can see better. This is zebras, so I'm going to go up to my lions. Here's my paragraph on lions. So it tells me in the instructions to go to the second paragraph. So here's my first paragraph. That's not the one I want. So I'm in my second paragraph is where it tells me to go. So it's going to be in this paragraph. But it says to go to the end of the third sentence. Well, here's sentence 1. Sentence 2 ends here. And so this right here is my third sentence, so it ends right here. So I'm going to click after the period of that third sentence, and we are now going to add a reference. Actually, technically, this should go between the nearby and the period. So click between the Y and the period, and we're going to insert a citation. Now, citations are part of the references tool. And one of the things about citations that you need to do before we insert the citation is we need to pick the style. There are different types of styles that you may use when you are inserting citations, and it all depends on who you're doing this paper for. For example, if this is a science paper, science often will use the APA format. Whereas if you're turning this into an English person, they may want you to use the MLA version. In fact, that's the type of reference that they want us to use here is going to be the MLA edition. So we're going to use this MLA 7th edition. So I'm going to click on MLA 7th edition, and all this is going to do is when it inserts the citation, it makes sure that it's formatted according to the structure associated with MLA. In reality, guys, you have this a whole lot easier than I did when I was in school, because we would have to look up the format and we would have to figure out, do you list the book first? Do you list the author first? Do you put a period between the book and the author? Do you put a comma between the book and the author? Word is going to take care of all of that for you. All you have to do is choose the right format and then pick on this insert citation. We are now adding a new book, okay, which is in this case a source, a new source for this particular document. So we're going to click on New Source, and this particular one does happen to be a book. So we're going to type in the author's name, which is going to be George, the letter B, the last name spelled S-C-H-A-L-L-E-R. The title of George's book is The Serengeti Lion. The Serengeti, spelled S-E-R-E-N-G-E-T-I, lion. And it has a subtitle, so we're going to do a colon, 2 spaces, a study of predator-prey, P-R-E-D-A-T-O-R, P-R-E-Y, predator-prey relations. The year that this was published was 2009. The city, Chicago. The publisher is the University of Chicago Press. And in this case, they didn't give a medium, so we're going to leave that blank. Alright, so I've typed in the information that the dialog box is asking for. I am now done, so I click OK. And that will properly put, using MLA format, it'll put the reference in right here. You say, Mr. Miller, that was an awful lot to type just to put one word. I could have typed that in. Understand that when we create our bibliography at the end of this document, that it's going to use all of that information. This is just referencing the bibliography that we're going to be putting in the document. Now let's go down to the zebra paragraph, because we used a different book for this. And so what we need to do is we need to note that book. It tells us in the first paragraph at the end, so I'm going to click at the end of this first paragraph, and we're going to add another book. So, same style, always going to be the same style. We're going to choose the insert citation. By the way, if you were using the same book again for a different place in your document, you could just simply click on this and it would automatically know, oh, that is the same book. But we're actually adding a new source in this case, so we're going to click on Add New Source. The author of this new source is Melissa Stewart, S-T-E-W-A-R-T, Melissa Stewart. I'm tabbing down to the title, and the title of this is real simple, Zebras. The year of this publication is 2002. The city was Detroit, and the publisher, Children's Press. Once I filled in the information that I have, I click OK, and it adds the appropriate note here. Now we've added our 2 books in, and in a real research paper, you could have 3, 4, 5, or 6 different books or websites, magazines that you're referring to. And so you would have to add all of those in. But we're going to leave this lesson at just the simple 2. And now I'm going to go to the end of my document. Now, the big question is, where is the end of my document? Is the end of my document here at the end of migration, or is the end of my document here at the end of photography tips? Well, the answer to this is down here, this is the EndNote, and the EndNote always goes at the very last thing in the document. And so technically, when we say go to the end of the document, we are going to go to this word trip. So clicking after the word trip, we are now going to create a new blank page. I'm going to go to page layout and I'm going to insert my page break here. So I'm on my new blank page, and what I wish to do is I wish to on this page add in my bibliography. To do that, I'm going to click on references, and we've been inserting our different citations. We've done a couple different books. Well, now we're ready to add our bibliography in. So with my cursor on the page, I'm going to click on Bibliography. Here you will have three options. Guys, these are all virtually identical. The only difference is the label at the top. Sometimes an instructor may want you to use a bibliography page. They might say to include a references page, or they might say to include a works cited page. It's up to the instructor, and so you just need to follow their instructions. In this particular case, they want us to use a works cited page. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use this works cited, and that is going to place all of our information that we have typed in, and it's properly formatted, it's alphabetized the way it's supposed to be alphabetized. The periods go where the periods should go, the commas go where the commas should go, the book names are italicized. All of the formatting is taken care of for you when you do these works cited or bibliography. The last thing I do want to mention as it relates to this bibliography is, say you already had your title typed in, you could just use the insert bibliography. All four of these options puts the same information in. The only difference is what title does it put in. Does it put in a bibliography, a resources, a works cited, or in this case it would put in no title. It would be up to you to type the title and place it into the document. So I now have my works cited information in my document. Well, that wraps us up for this particular lesson. And so what we're going to go ahead and do is save our work and close out of this file. In this lesson, we showed you how to insert a page break into our document. We controlled pagination using keep with next. We also talked a little bit about footnotes and endnotes. We discussed citations, which is basically inserting new books or new magazines or new websites, other reference materials that we want to include. And then we talked about adding a reference page and the three different options that were available for those reference pages.